Hi folks, it's John from lastchanceautorestore.com. I'd like to share with you a brief update. This is Eileen, the 1978 Volkswagen Westfalia. We've got quite a bit of progress. We've done a lot of the metal work, or started a lot of the metal work, beginning with one of the worst sections, which is the driver rear quarter panel. In a previous video we shared with you where there was a substantial amount of damage that was done to this whole corner section. Up in here there's a lot of holes drilled with lots of body filler, and then it was punched in here and brought out in the end. So we've got this brief little slideshow and then we'll cut back. So we've taken a few photos showing the damaged section with it removed and then with this new piece dry fitted on. So we'll just cut away now to share with you those few pictures and we'll be right back. Okay, so now that we share with you those few photos, we can get a closer look at the panel that we had in question, or the one that was damaged quite a bit. So the camera can probably pick it up. It has probably a quarter, not more, thickness of body filler that we had to remove from this panel. It was badly distorted, and then someone in a previous repair, they used probably an old slide hammer where they drill holes through. You can see these are the hunks of body filler that they've put through the holes. So typically if you get a really sharp indentation, old school guys would either drill holes or they'd have a slide hammer with a big threaded bolt on it, or threaded screw, and they would screw into the panel and try pulling the majority of the dent out. But then normally you'd want to fill the metal, the holes, with welding and steel. But unfortunately what they did here is kind of a different way of doing it, where they just plug it with body filler. You can see there's still excessive damage where the major dents were, and then you can see down further we've got a lot of corrosion and distortion. You can see where it was punched in here where the bumper had forced it in, and then this top portion was pushed out, and then they just try to use body filler to fix it all. And then we had some holes going through here under the tail light. So this section is where the battery tray and the panel meet. If I just turn this panel over, you can see it a little bit clearer. So you can see all the pinholes here and the rusted out sections, and all they basically did is just filled it with body filler. And that's why Eileen had, one of the reasons why it had so much Bondo or body filler in the panels was to hide all of the body damage and then a lot of rust. They just basically put body filler over the rusted areas. So after cutting that out, all of the rusted stuff out, I should say, then you saw on the slideshow where we had the new panel. It said German made. It's the best quality replacement panel available. So then there's a little bit of trimming and measuring required pardon me, before this could be set inside. What you didn't see in the slideshow is when this whole panel was removed, We cleaned and checked all inside where the additional battery tray or auxiliary tray is on the inside, and then we've protected it with 2 coats of a special, it's a DOM 16 is the name of the product. It's a Canadian version of POR 15, and it's a rust inhibitor paint. So we put 2 coats of a rust inhibitor paint in that area before this panel was welded into place, and you can see where we have the welds ground smooth. We'll then polish and sand pardon me, this shipping primer off later. Goodness, pardon me. And then in the back panel here, which is this panel, is the original filler panel. You can see, which is really important in my opinion, because of crash standards and the way things are built. I guess I should hold it the way it goes on the vehicle. All of these holes we drilled out. Those are all factory correct spot welds, and that's a little bit of work involved there. But we want to make sure that we re-weld everything in the proper locations as the factory did, because crash standards, they relied on strength in certain areas, and this back section, especially the lower section behind the bumper, it's really important for these buses. So this had excessive corrosion and an incredible amount of body filler. So we wanted to remove this and replace it with a new panel. And we have the, I believe it's called Klooster Home. They bought the original tooling, I believe, from Volkswagen. So we have the replacement panel. You can see it has the groove in it for the weather stripping that goes across later. And we've got the correct tabs. And then obviously you can see the difference between the two in terms of it's going to last a lot longer. You can probably see in the little slideshow that we had, once we removed this rusted filler panel, there was some rust through holes on the back side of that panel, and it was in this area. There was several holes here, and then in the next picture we had this cut out. And then we made a piece and then welded it in. You can see this black product. This is this anti-rust paint once again, and it's a product called DOM 16. It's a Canadian version of POR 15. So we have a couple of coats of that on, and that's going to seal all these nooks and crannies from future rust, because it'll seal this area. And then you'll notice people wouldn't do this kind of detail, but in behind you can see this kind of a rectangular cutout with the rounded ends. Most people would just put a patch either over top of that or just make the piece and not cut that out, but the factory had that same design on both sides, so we made a pattern piece and then we made sure that it was exactly the same. So later on, when this new piece goes on, it's going to need a little bit of dry fitting. But when that goes on and it's all spot welded in the same number of welds, and then once we have that sandblasted inside and painted, it's going to look exactly like factory, like we never even were in there. So that's kind of important, because the beauty of having a restoration done properly is to have no evidence of what sort of work was done to the vehicle. So we're going to continue on excuse me, with this 78 Westfalia with Eileen. We've got a really bad rusted out battery tray, which is really common, which we shared with you in an earlier video. So we'll be working our way across this side next. So just a brief update. This is the 1978 Volkswagen Westfalia, and I thank you for watching. I'm John from lastchanceautorestore.com.